Happy Easter, Billiken fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Midtown Madness podcast with Peter Hale and Zach Miller. I'm Zach Miller. This is Peter Hale with me, and we've got a great episode for you filled with recruiting talk and a few wild games in the world of Billiken athletics. Pete, how are we doing?
Doing well, Zach. Yeah, a lot of fun stuff to talk about this week. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm on the disabled. Well, we don't say that anymore. I'm on the injured list these days. I was hurt my back. I do a lot of training, and I hurt my back stretching, which is exactly how it goes for old men, apparently.
Yeah, welcome to your 30s.
I know it was heartbreaking to have to stop working out. I'm like, no, I don't feel like my day's complete anymore. Like without exercise, it's weird. But yeah, we've got a ton. The recruiting trail is insane right now with the transfer portal. Got some good news coming down the pipeline on the transfer side of things. I think I texted you the other day, and it's the only thing I could come up with. It's the kind of thing that I could only come up with in an altered state of consciousness. I texted you and I asked how long until we see a trade in college basketball. And of course, it has actually happened. Well, we don't know if it actually happened, but it's kind of happened.
Yeah, functionally, I guess it's a trade. I guess it was bound to happen someday.
Yeah, I mean, while we're talking about, the NILs, potentially paying players actual money. It was Mizzou and Kansas State. Is that what I get? Mark Smith went to Kansas State, and then who came from Kansas State who went to Mizzou?
So that's DeJuan Gordon. He actually was a SLU recruit out of high school. He's a Chicago kid. And I think he just finished it's either sophomore or junior year. So he's got at least 2 years left.
Yeah, now the years are like contracts.
I know.
It's like contract years are like eligible. It's insane.
Yeah, because everybody has at least one more year. So Smith is basically a grad transfer. So he'll have 1 year at K-State, and then Gordon will have at least 2 at Mizzou if he wants them.
That's bonkers, man. This transfer portal is – I don't want to say out of control because I think it's a good thing that players get to choose where they go and get to move schools whenever they kind of feel like it. And if they feel, like they're not getting playing time at their current school, it's good for them to be able to move on.
Yeah, I think so. I know we had Rammer on last week, and he kind of talked about how he doesn't like this trend at all. I think he thinks it represents, players at the first sign of adversity get to bail, and it's bad for basketball, and it's bad for continuity, and it's bad for fans. And I definitely can understand that perspective, but I think I think for one, the roster sizes are still the same. So it's not like Kentucky and Duke and Kansas can just grab every good player out there. They still only have the same number of scholarships as everybody else, I know there are guys who right now won't count against the scholarship because of the COVID year, but fundamentally the long term is everybody's still got 13 scholarships. And when you kind of break down where everybody's going, there are a lot more players who are kind of staying at their level, making lateral moves to similar conferences or moving down a level than there are going up to the big conferences. There just aren't that many guys who can do that. I think it kind of adds a new dynamic in coaching in that player retention and then re-recruiting of players like, who are as transfers instead of just high school players. Those are new things that coaches have to do. But I tend to favor player empowerment first. So I think it's a good thing, and we'll see how it evolves.
I think it's totally fair. I think the one downside I see not so much is it could be the imbalance of power. I see it as a more of not getting to kind of latch on to the team, like the players on the team, and maybe you don't feel that connection with players as much if people are constantly moving teams. But I still think you'll have a lot of those 4-year guys and the guys that stick with it.
I mean, it's up to the coach to kind of recruit the right mix.
Yeah.
Kentucky for about a decade now has been home of the one and dones, and it's like some years that works out great and they win a national title, and other years it's just the wrong mix of guys and it blows up in your face. I think there are other schools that have kind of figured it out more. I look at somebody like Villanova, where they've had a lot of guys in the NBA, but most of them are there 2 or 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. So there's a little more continuity, and they're able to kind of keep their system and keep their players a little bit longer. So it's really, it's going to be up to coaches to kind of to just get that right.
Yeah. I saw another, it's kind of funny because I think on Billikens.com and on Twitter, anytime, now we've seen Mickey Pearson, who never committed to SLU, or did commit to SLU and then decommitted, I believe.
He signed.
He signed, yeah. and then backed out. And then, we see Jalen Johnson entering the transfer portal for now the 4th time.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of a running joke that, they're going to come back to SLU. They're going to come back to SLU. We actually saw that twice with other schools in the last few days. I don't remember who it was, and I didn't really take note other than of the fact that they did. But we've seen now at least 2 players this season transfer back to the school they started with initially. So I wonder how often, a kid will think it's the grass is greener at another school and then go back.
Yeah, I mean, we're about to hit 1,200 transfers. It actually has slowed down in the last couple days. We got to 1,000 pretty fast and 1,100 pretty fast, but it's only been a couple dozen this weekend, which I know sounds crazy, but when you're at 1,200, that's not a huge number. But anyway, maybe that's for the Easter holiday or something. I don't know. But with that many guys, it's just bound to happen. There's almost 360 D1 programs now, and there's an average of over 3 transfers per team right now. So it's just mathematically bound to happen that some guys are going to wind up back where they started. But it's all. I mean, that's one of those things where I guess you never want to burn bridges. So you never know where players are leaving it, where coaches are leaving it. Not everybody's going to want somebody back just because they feel a need or whatever.
If you're a coach, are you open to having a player come back that kind of, I don't want to say bailed, but kind of left your program and then it's like, hey, coach, want to come back?
I guess, it just all depends on circumstances.
Sure.
Like what kind of relationship you had with the guy, why he left. I mean, there are players who just – you hit a wall, or maybe they have some circumstances in their lives, like a death in the family or something like that.
Right,
I mean,
of course.
there are very legitimate reasons that have nothing to do with something having gone bad basketball wise, or within the scope of the team or the coaching staff. And so a year later, 2 years later, things look different in a kid's life, and it's like, I'm ready to do this again, and sometimes that makes sense. With Pearson and
I was going to say there's a Pearson joke about staying close to your grandma in there somewhere.
I never actually saw where that's like that. That was one of those things where people ran with that as if he had said that, but I actually never saw him say that. So I'm not sure if that's true or not.
It's but the Billiken Mandela effect.
Yeah, I just don't know if that was a real thing. Jalen Johnson at this point, is this his 6th year in college now that it's going to be?
When you spend more time in college than me, I think you're doing it wrong. Or you're doing it right. I don't know.
Well, I mean, maybe he'll have a PhD when he comes out or something like that.
Hey, he did better than I did if he got any grad school credit.
But I think they're both talented kids and who are going to find a good fit somewhere. I hope so. I mean, I loved Pearson coming out of high school. I was pretty upset. Well, not upset, but disappointed that he didn't come to SLU. But he never really found his way at TCU, which kind of surprises me. A guy with his size and his ability just kind of to not really be a factor like that. I figured he'd at least find a role there, but I don't know. Whatever. Hopefully they both find the right place for him.
A lot of focus has been on the transfer portal and rightfully so. Is there anything in the high school recruiting sector that stands out to you in the last month or so? I mean, I haven't heard anything, but you are way more plugged in and kind of obsessively plugged in than I am to.
Yeah, sure. Like, so there's for SLU right now, there's not a whole lot that's been going on because our coaching staff basically opted out of the 2021 class, at least for now. There's always a chance that they might use one of these last scholarships on a guy coming out of high school, but it really doesn't look like it. So everything would have to be in the 2022 class and later. And really, it's funny. The only offer that SLU has put out recently is to a kid who is an 8th grader currently, which is the class of 2025, if you prefer the years. But he's a guard out of the Bronx, New York City, Danny Carbuccia.
I love that name already.
It's a great name, and I kind of did a little research because I was like, why are we offering an 8th grader? He's out of the same AAU program that Hassan French came out of, also being a New York guy, and he does not look like an 8th grader. I mean, he looks like a legitimate D1 talent right now. So I imagine this kid's got a pretty bright future, and it's a long time before he's ever gonna sign or go anywhere. But I thought that was interesting. That's the only offer that we've put out lately, and it's to somebody that young. So I guess there's a name to keep a track of for the next 4 years.
It's a fun fact. According to verbal commits, we're not the first offer. Or does he?
No, Stony Brook beat us by a couple weeks.
Yeah, March 22nd, they extended an offer.
Right.
But yeah, while I'm on verbal commits, I guess we can talk about the big transfer news. The Billikens got a commitment from a 6'5", 185-pound guard out of Detroit, Michigan, by way of Cleveland State and Oakland. Rashad Willams is going to be a Billiken next year, eligible immediately as everyone else will be. What do you see from this kid? I'm sure you've watched the video.
Yeah, so I think the height might be off there. I don't think he's 6'5". I think he's a little shorter than that. So he started out at Cleveland State as a freshman, shot 41% from three on pretty high volume. He shot over 7 a game. Really effective player as a freshman, but wound up transferring to Oakland. He's a Detroit guy, and Oakland is in suburban Detroit, Oakland University. And the next year, he proceeds to put up 12.5 3-point attempts per game. Didn't shoot as high a percentage. He only made about a third of them. But he's the kind of guy who can just go off on any given night. This past year, obviously already shortened because of COVID, but he was playing 38 minutes a game as a sophomore, dipped down to 28 minutes a game as a junior. And a lot of that had to do with injuries. He was in a car accident in the beginning of the season. Wow. And that limited his minutes early on. And then I think he twisted an ankle at some point and had another kind of fluky injury. Nothing that really sidelined him, but it was the kind of thing where he really couldn't play. He couldn't start some games. He was coming off the bench. And so anyway, his minutes were down. 3-point percentage was about 33% again. And he led the nation this season, despite shortened minutes, led the nation in 3-point attempts again. So he's a really unique player in that it's just kind of a green light all the time. He creates a shot. He'll shoot off the dribble. He'll shoot off the catch. Loves to shoot in transition. I mean, he's just always looking to gun it. So really different kind of player than we're used to seeing. I mean, this is a guy who will just fire away at any point. And so that's the thing to me that's really, really interesting is knowing that Javonte Perkins is coming back, and he's already kind of a green light scorer for us. Mm-hmm. A guy who, when he gets the ball, he's usually shooting pretty immediately. So seeing that we've already got Perkins in the backcourt or on the wing, whatever, And then adding this guy to the mix is a really sort of unique 1-2
Yeah.
scoring punch. So we go from an offense that kind of could, like we talked about at points of the season, kind of get stuck in the mud, to guys who are just going to shoot right away all the time. It's a really interesting dynamic.
Ford just gets these sticks up his ass about like things that bother him about his team, and then he goes out and just goes way off the map. Like you saw in 1819, we couldn't shoot the ball. So right. What's our team look like in 2020? You've got Perkins, you've got Jacobs, you've got Jimerson, all guys who can right. put the ball in the hoop from beyond the arc. And now the team gets bogged down in the mud, and you've got guys that can shoot, that like to shoot in transition. So he kind of just really he makes these big swings. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, if you're looking like, okay, who's out? Jacobs, French, and Goodwin. This guy is not a 1-to-1 replacement for any of them. Right. He should get bigger minutes than Jacobs did. Probably not what Goodwin did. There's no way he can shoot the same volume he did at Oakland the last 2 years. There's just no way. With Perkins on the floor, he's just not option one. But my hope is that as his attempts go down, maybe that naturally means his shot selection is going to be a little more, like he's going to have a little more judgment to it than just jacking everything. And maybe we'll see that 3-point percentage get back up closer to 40%. If we can have a volume shooter who's anywhere close to 40, yeah, green light as far as I'm concerned.
I did notice something interesting looking at his stats. He puts up some steals too.
Yeah, he actually this past season, despite playing fewer minutes, he really did increase his steals. Now, most of the video you see on him, doesn't tell you a whole lot on defense. Carter Chapley wrote that he's a lot more comfortable in a man defense than a zone, and that when Oakland went to a zone anytime this year, he kind of struggled. So that's not something SLU does a lot. So if that's the case, he should be fairly comfortable. And I think most guys know if you're going to play for Travis Ford, you've got to be able to defend. So I'm assuming Ford's confident that there's some, there's at least a good learning curve here, a quick learning curve, if he has that in terms of catching up defensively.
And for those who like to really harp on the free throws, he shot at Oakland. He shot 82.8% from the line. So getting a guy on par with at least Perkins from the free throw line, and if he likes to shoot in traffic, in transition, that's another almost gimme at the free throw line.
Yeah, hopefully he's looking to not just fire away from three, but get inside and draw some fouls as well.
Well, Billiken fans, this is kind of an emergency recording session. Full disclosure, Billiken News always tends to drop right after we finish recording it without fail. I don't know if it's the Sunday night recording schedule, but as I'm sure you all are aware by now, if you're listening to this podcast, there's no doubt you're aware. Jordan Nesbitt announced he was transferring from the University of Memphis and has committed to play for the Billikens on Frank Cusimano. Rarely you get a college basketball commitment cut in front of a prison riot, but that's what we got last night. Pete, initial reaction when the news became official?
Excitement. Just really excited about this one. It was one that we kind of, ever since he hit the portal, almost immediately, buzz around SLU started building. I think just because, we were in his top 3 when he committed to Memphis in the fall. So right away it was just, is this it? Is this it? Is this it all day? So yeah, just really excited, happy that it happened. I see that you stayed up for it last night too, the big news.
Yeah, I did. It was, and then I ended up staying up way too late. When you
when there's something you want to watch on late and then you just end up being up till like 1 a.m. and then the next morning you're just dead tired.
That's how it happens, though. I mean, you get the big piece of news, and it's not just like, okay, I'm going to bed now.
Yeah, you're going on all social media.
Yeah. And suddenly you're watching his like hype videos and stuff.
That's exactly what I did. But how about did you see Cusimano? Like, because he just straight up, like, he was the biggest tease ever last night during this. I mean, he started with, I believe he started with, for 4 years, Jordan Goodwin has led the Billikens, and you're like, what are you about to announce? Because I think you're going one way, but I'm not, but you may be going another.
Yeah. Yeah. Like thinking Goodwin's going to come back or something.
Yeah.
So I did not actually watch the show. I mean, not being local, I just kind of followed along on Twitter. I probably could have found a stream or something somewhere, but I knew it was going to be covered in a split second. I could kind of tell how Twitter and everything was building, that I would know within a second of it happening. So yeah, it wasn't Goodwin returning. You know, this is the guy we initially wanted to kind of come in for Goodwin in the first place. It was just kind of a roundabout way that we got him. So yeah, no, I followed it on Twitter, and found that I was well informed that way for sure. What was the experience like live once he announced it? Did he continue to kind of build it up, or was it all before?
They went right back to the prisoners setting fire to the downtown holding cells.
Okay.
That's one way to celebrate a big commitment. A local kid staying home. You set fire to the prison. But no, I'm excited. It's one of those things. It almost feels like Nesbitt made the decision to come to SLU before he even entered the portal. And I don't want that to come across as tamper. Like, there's no chance, I believe, Travis Ford or anybody on the staff contacted him while he was still under scholarship at Memphis, but it just feels like he had this in the back of his mind. And his dad even said that when he went away to Memphis, he thinks that, he realized pretty quickly that home is where the heart is.
Yeah, and that's what he told Frank. I mean, he like his direct quote is, "At first, I was going to Memphis and playing for them. Then after I got there, I kind of really decided that I just wanted to do it at home. I feel comfortable at home. I love home. I just want to get back to home and do something that I'll be remembered forever for. I can't wait." And then he added that, "I know the guys who are already there. They're all pretty talented like me. So I feel like once I get there, we're going to gel together because I already know them. And I think we can come in and work hard every day and win the national championship. And that's what I want to do in my hometown." I mean, there's for
those not watching, I'm giddy listening to him use the term national championship.
I mean, there's no shortage of confidence here. I mean, he definitely believes that he's an NBA player, a future NBA player, which is what you want. I mean, you don't want a guy coming in going, "No, this is probably my ceiling." I like the confidence bordering on maybe arrogance. I like the swagger. That's something that we need. So I welcome that absolutely.
Coincidentally, I was one of those people when I got to SLU. Maybe this is my ceiling. That was kind of how I entered the school.
I mean, it's definitely been downhill for me since then. So yeah, I definitely peaked then. No, but yeah, you do look at the roster, and there's a lot of guys that he is familiar with, that he has either played with before, maybe he was a couple of years behind, but absolutely knows. They came up in the same AAU programs, or they. It's a small world when you're one of the best of any given class in a metro area. So he knows Hargrove and Collins and Okoro and Thatch and all of these dudes. So yeah, you have to like that chemistry. Thinking about a backcourt with him and Collins is really exciting.
I wonder what your take on this, because I know there was a lot of talk. I think initially when Travis Ford came in and was locking down St. Louis really hard, that maybe you don't want too many local guys on the team because maybe you can't keep them all happy, and maybe it ruffles feathers around town in the AAU circuit, or even in the high school. I think high school probably more, because really everyone kind of plays for the Beagles. What do you think about that, having so many local guys and maybe playing with a little bit of fire.
Yeah, I mean, there are only so many mouths to feed. You get 13 scholarships, and if you make them all local, that guarantees that some guys are going to be sitting, and maybe they're getting frustrated, and maybe their parents are getting tired of going to the game and not seeing them get in and stuff like that. So you do risk malcontents. I don't think that's the case with any of our local guys. I mean, obviously Collins is a starter. Thatch does not seem to be, frustrated with his minutes or anything like that. He's kind of worked his way back up to an important role in the rotation. Hargrove, I know, has had his moments over his 2 years where he hasn't played as much, but
he's got such a great attitude, though.
He does, and by the end of the season, his minutes kept going up and up, and he was filling a really valuable role. So when I'm looking around at the local guys who are on the roster, Phil Russell chose to come and walk on. So I think he knows like he's not going to be getting big minutes, as a freshman walk on behind Collins. So far, I don't think that has necessarily backfired. I guess you can look at Gordon, who came in, early on in Ford's tenure and didn't last. But I think there was just a lot going on there that was specific to him. And I don't think, he's necessarily, it has borne out that he has not necessarily like told other local players like, hey, this isn't the place for you or anything like that. It just didn't work out with him specifically for a lot of reasons. So yeah, there's always a risk, but look, Nesbitt's he's coming into a starting spot. We can sort of try and project the roster all we want, but he's a fringe top 50 recruit. He's going to be starting, like the Goodwin and French are leaving. That's 35 minutes a game, 30 minutes game each. And then, Jacobs is gone. I mean, there's a starting role for him. So, he's not going to be, it's not going to be the situation that he had at Memphis where the roster was just chock full of 4- and 5-star recruits and not enough minutes to go around.
It's funny you mentioned Jacobs because I realized how big of a mistake I made in doing my notes for last night's recording session. And I'm glad we had to do an emergency recording session because there has been 2 departures, one on the men's side, one on the women's side. We'll talk about Demarius Jacobs because that's really why people come and listen to us. And we'll, what was your reaction to Demarius leaving? What do you think was his motive for not bailing, but walking away from the team and kind of entering the portal?
I don't know that I can necessarily pinpoint his motive. I think of all the players on our roster in the past few years, he's been the hardest to read. He's a really low-key guy. He's not super active on social media. He seems like kind of a homebody. I know, like, whenever he does post on social media, he's just like posting his video games or whatever. So I think he's just a low-key guy, and he's it's hard to kind of tell where he's at. It doesn't seem like there was any bad blood or anything like that. We saw that he started this season kind of looking like the 6th man of the year, and by the end of the season, he was barely a factor. So I don't know if COVID hit him pretty hard or if there were other things going on that, I think he also, he got hurt coming out of the COVID break. And so he kind of had a double whammy there. So I don't know if it was just him thinking like, hey, the way that this has gone down the stretch hasn't worked out for me. I don't know if I want to come back for another year or two. Maybe he wants to go back home. I honestly don't know what his motivation is. But my reaction whenever anyone leaves, no matter who the player is, how significant they are to the roster is, I'm a little sad. I'm a little disappointed it didn't work out. Like when they come to SLU, when they put on a SLU jersey, start taking classes at SLU, I want it to work out for everybody.
You take it personally, like in a good way.
Absolutely.
You feel like somebody's chosen this. Feels like they're making the same decision you are. It's kind of like how I talked with when we had Ramsey on about how I love to meet someone who grew up a Billiken fan because you have made the same choices I have over the last, your whole life, you know what I mean? I love this program. I love this school and someone has chosen the school that I love and that I care about. So it's kind of personal when they come in. And I don't feel that when I don't take it personally when they leave, which is kind of the nice part of that. You just kind of wish them the best, and sucks it didn't work out. It's kind of like the good way of breaking up that never actually happens.
That's right. Yeah, I never, no, I never hold it against somebody when they leave. I mean, these guys all have their reasons,
Yeah.
whether no matter whether they were frustrated with playing time or just maybe want to go closer to home, or they're looking for something different altogether. I don't begrudge anyone. I don't question their motives. I don't take it personally. And I never badmouth them on the way out. That's something I kind of learned a long time ago. It's just not worth it. And it's genuinely wrongheaded and off base.
Only one of you is going to look like the asshole, and it's not going to be the player.
That's right. Yeah. every time. So I don't want to be one of those kind of, malignant fans or anything. I'm just not interested in that. So yeah, obviously I wish Jacobs the best and hope it all works out for him, whatever he's doing. I mean, is there any other thing that I'm not thinking of? Any other reason he might be on his way out?
I mean, the only thing I don't know. I guess it's kind of crazy that I've totally forgot he came in the year ready to be the sixth man of the year. That was his goal. And he fell entirely short of that goal.
He looked like it early though. I mean,
yes.
When we went into the break, he was shooting like 700%, he was shooting like 700 from the field, 70%, like his percentages. And yeah, he wasn't shooting like 12 shots a game or anything like that, but he was incredibly efficient. He was doing exactly what he needed to be doing. It was the tale of two seasons for him. I mean, probably more than anyone else on the roster, maybe Jimerson excepted.
I mean, you wonder if maybe he got again, we talked about how Nesbitt maybe had this decided and he heard about Nesbitt. Yeah. Maybe, I mean, this could have all been rolling downhill a month ago. But speaking of just not being completely blindsided by transfers, the women, and you don't see a lot of transfers in women's basketball. Maybe one or two, maybe one person on a team per year, if that. But Rachel Kent, the sharpshooting guard out of Chicago, I believe, is moving on. And I mean, she's going to have her pick of the litter for whatever school she wants to go to. That's how good of a shooter she is in my mind.
She was great down the stretch when they're playing their best basketball of the year, at the end of the regular season, then again, a couple good games in the NIT. She was absolutely instrumental to that. So I was shocked by that too. And really, bummed out that she's leaving. I hope they're able to land somebody of her caliber coming the other way because, as others have written, they have a chance to be the best they've ever been next season. And she's a big loss.
Yeah, I don't think they're good. I think I said on Twitter, I don't think it's going to be a knockout blow, but it is a tough loss. You still have shooters in Maya Clark. Marissa Warren can shoot the hell out of the ball. Others too. Julia Martinez has shown that she can shoot the three when she gets rolling. So it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to see what Stone has up her sleeve. Again, peek behind the curtain. I really don't have a great, I don't even remember where I'm going to drop this at or what came next, but I believe we're going to go into the Olympic sport update, so to speak. So, yeah, that's all I think we can really say on this transfer. And I think everyone's really excited. I mean, I don't think there was a person I don't think there were any reservations on the message board or Twitter.
No, I mean, there's some Memphis people trying to say like on the way out that he was kind of, a malcontent or a head case or whatever the words they're using are, that there might've been some bad blood there and that he gave Penny no choice but to let him go or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, look, Memphis had 4 transfers in the span of 5 days or something like that. So I don't necessarily look at his case as a whole lot different as the others. There's a lot of highly touted freshmen and sophomores that all came in at the same time. Now a bunch of them are leaving at the same time. A couple others might look kind of might test their draft stock. I don't think anybody on their team's better than a second rounder at best right now, personally. But I just think Penny was counting on all of this talent coming in. I don't think he was counting on Nesbitt coming in early, for one, like mid-season.
He just showed up.
Yeah, because he did not have the minutes to give him.
Yeah.
Even though he called him a one and done style talent. So I don't necessarily buy into that, but I think some SLU fans have kind of expressed some concern. Maybe there's something off the court to be worried about.
Nah. I've seen maybe something, but I mean, I've heard head case thrown around, but I mean, look, the kid's where he wants to be. If the worst you can say is that he got there, and either Penny sold him, something that he couldn't deliver on, or he just wanted to come home and he really realized, that sometimes you make the wrong call, and he realized it pretty quickly and decided to come back. So I think he's where he wants to be. I think he's got, St. Louis in his blood, and he seems like he's ready to put on for his city. So, as young Jeezy would say.
For sure. And now, ignoring the off-court stuff, because, I'll buy into it if I see more. I don't really think there's much there. What do you think he brings on court? What do you think he does to our lineup?
Oh God. Size, at the wing position. I think he brings athleticism, polished game. I think, he's kind of, I think he can guard pretty much anybody 1 through 4. Right.
Yeah.
I think you said that last night, in the A10. I mean, he's literally just going to bring flexibility up and down. I mean, he can, he can back up Yuri. It's a ton of flexibility. I think it's a lot of run and gun we're going to be looking at. I think we're going to shoot threes, and I think we're going to get rebounds. I think that's Travis Ford's play. I think it's funny. I think he just flips the script when he sees something he doesn't like with his roster. He goes completely the other way.
Yeah, he's so when you look at the departures, you've got Jacobs, who we talked about before, and then French and Goodwin moving on. French and Goodwin, both really unique players, obviously. And then incoming, you've got basically Okoro. You've got Willams, who's a high volume 3-point shooter, high volume shooter from anywhere, basically instant offense. And at about 6'2", and then you've got now 6'6", 185, 190, Nesbitt coming in, who does a little bit of everything, like you said, can guard 1 through 4 in the A10, but he'll probably line up next to Collins most of the time. And then when Collins takes a breather, he can slide over and handle the point. One of the things he said about himself in high school as a recruit was, I'm a big guard. I'm a ball dominant guard. I can handle the ball. He does have a complete guard skill set. Scores on 3 levels. There's a lot to like here. Before he left for Memphis early this season, he hadn't really found his 3-point shot yet. St. Louis Christian plays on the grind session, is what it's called. It's like a national, prep circuit. But so he hadn't really found his 3-point shot yet this season, but he can definitely shoot it. So yeah, there's a lot of this gives us a lot of versatility in the lineup. And Ford's never really been a coach who plays fast, but I love what this team could be in transition. A
lot of fun. Dunk City comes to mind. Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah, so we're probably not quite the rebounding team we were before, right? Because you lose the best rebounding guard in the country with Goodwin, and French is obviously a really good rebounder, but Okoro is going to be pretty close to French in terms of rebound. He's longer, he's taller, he's longer than French. Nesbitt,
Thatch, you got Thatch. You
got Thatch, yeah. There's some guys whose minutes will naturally increase a little bit, but we're still going to be a really good defensive, really good rebounding team. We do lose 2 really good defenders and rebounders, but the scoring ability of Nesbitt is going to make some of those attributes easier to miss, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited. And before this national championship game tips off, who you got?
I got to say Gonzaga, just because I want it to happen so bad. What about you?
Gonzaga.
Yeah.
All right, Pelican fans. Take it easy. So let's talk about some guys that the Billikens have contacted that we're sure about. Who have the Billikens talked to in the transfer portal that it's been at least made known?
So we've definitely, I think, we've definitely talked to Mason Madsen out of Cincinnati. He's a guard out of Cincinnati, a freshman, combo guard. We've definitely talked to Donovan Clay out of Valparaiso, who's a kid from Alton, Illinois. Kind of I guess you'd call him kind of an undersized 4, but he'd probably play a 3 or a 4. He's about 6'7". And we've definitely talked to Jordan Nesbitt, who is leaving Memphis. He showed up at Memphis mid-season because he was taking a prep year at St. Louis Christian Academy. And people, most people listening to this probably remember him as the one player in this senior class that SLU actually did really recruit hard. And in the end, he chose Memphis over SLU in Illinois. Well, now he's back in the portal very quickly after only playing a few minutes this year at Memphis. And I don't know, where he left it with, him and Penny, but I guess he was pretty disappointed because I think Penny long-term saw him as a factor, but when he showed up this year, didn't really have a place for him. So yeah, Nesbitt was coming out of high school, a top 60 talent, 4-star recruit, just a big-time player, 6'6", about 190, and a really dynamic guard, a guy who can play the point. Honestly, in the A-10, he could play anything from a 1 to a 4, but he really does prefer to be kind of a lead guard, or at least a ball-dominant 2 guard. So much different look than we've seen in our backcourt lately. So yeah, we've talked to all of those guys for sure. I think we also talked to Xavier Pinson out of Mizzou, somebody we recruited out of high school, but he actually just listed his Final Four a couple hours ago, and SLU's not in it. It's Nebraska, Georgia, Arkansas, and Auburn.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Wait,
yeah, so
was that 4 SEC schools, or I missed one? Wasn't
Nebraska is also in there. Yeah, so he's most likely staying in conference. But anyway, wow. Yeah, I think we had also talked to him. And the other thing is, I'm 100% sure we've talked to dozens of other guys.
Yeah,
it's just impossible to confirm. So those are the ones we know about for sure.
Matt, what an opportunity there in Nesbitt. He literally got college prep work for half a season. Yeah. And now he's going to go, play 4 years somewhere, hopefully. That's like a bonus. That's a complete bonus for whoever gets him.
Yeah, he's an incredible talent. And now there's kind of a thing happening right now, and I don't know how much of this is sour grapes or what, but if you're looking at sort of Memphis basketball Twitter, or if you're looking at any of their kind of beat writers, they're kind of hinting that, Nesbitt was a head case, or he was a problem child, or, they're trying to make it sound like whatever led to his departure was his fault. And, at this point, obviously something like that is just speculation and impossible for us to prove. So I don't know what that's all about, or if there's any truth to it, or if they're just trying to sort of justify the crazy roster churn at Memphis right now. Just because, they were kind of oversubscribed and now a bunch of guys have transferred. So, and not just like dudes who haven't played much, but star players at Memphis have left. So I don't know what's going on with that situation. And I know, look, Nesbitt's a guy who he had transferred. He started out his high school in St. Louis at Lutheran North, transferred down to St. Louis Christian Academy. And I remember like back in his sophomore, junior year, people saying, he's a little bit of a head case or whatever, but I don't know. Whatever that's all about, he's not the kind of talent that a program like SLU can just turn their nose up at.
Right.
He's a local kid. He's an incredible player. He was like I said, he was a top 60 coming out of high school. I really think that's maybe a little underrated based on what I've seen out of him. I think he's awesome, and he definitely has some NBA potential for sure. So he tried Memphis out, didn't appear to be a good fit. And as far as I'm concerned, clean slate. So,
Yeah,
So,
I think you get him home, and maybe he plays better for people he knows or people he's had a relationship with longer than Penny, like Tate, or I mean, yeah. I look, Penny. You got to remember, Penny's new at this as far as
yes,
college goes, dealing with college players.
yes,
I
yeah.
mean, AAU kids don't really talk back or have dissenting opinions. They are as much dependent on you as you are. Like they are much more dependent, in my mind, right?
It's a totally different dynamic.
Yeah.
I know he's had some high school AAU coaching experience before, but you're not dealing with, the NCAA rule book.
Right.
You're dealing with just much smaller. You're dealing with younger guys, smaller problems, smaller, fans and media attention and everything. It's a whole different dynamic in high level college basketball, for sure. So yeah, there's obviously going to be a learning curve for somebody like him who's, coming from the NBA and having been a star like him, and then coaching a little bit in high school and some youth. It's got to be frustrating to all of a sudden go to Memphis with all of these expectations and then have to deal with the NCAA and a lot of other issues that he hadn't before.
There are quite a few players in this portal that actually had SLU offers out of high school. Obviously, the big name is Cameron Fletcher out of Kentucky. He's leaving Cal's program. Xavier Pinson, who you mentioned, but we're not in the Final Four, as well as Torrance Watson. That's obviously going to be the guys that Billiken fans are most aware of. Have you seen anything regarding those three or anybody else kind of connected with SLU after their transfer that had already had an offer from the Billikens?
Yeah, so Fletcher's another one that SLU was confirmed to have reached out to, and he's another one that you have to, because I think like Nesbitt, he's that kind of 4-star, top 60 level talent, similar size, more of a wing. It obviously did not work out for him at Kentucky. But yeah, local kid with that pedigree, with that level of talent, absolutely, you reach out to him. But I had heard for a while that he was kind of liking Mizzou, and then he was kind of liking Florida State. But I'm not sure either of those are happening at this point. I know Georgetown just reached out to him, so he'll be going most likely to a power conference school somewhere. I just don't know where yet. We didn't make Pinson's top four. Torrance Watson, I don't know what the story is there. I know he's had a really disappointing career at Mizzou. Over 3 seasons, he's kind of seen his minutes and his production, drop each year. So I'm not really sure what's next for him. But obviously it's been a disappointment at Mizzou. There are some other guys, like you have to look at a guy like Jamal Mashburn Jr., who we recruited out of high school. Obviously his dad is somebody that Travis knows really well from his Kentucky days. But he went to play for Richard Pitino at Minnesota. Now he's gone. So Mashburn's out and looking for a new home. So I got to think that's a kid that they would have reached out to. Another guy coming home to St. Louis, or sorry, not necessarily coming home, but from St. Louis, is Joe Reese, who played 3 seasons at Old Dominion and went to Vashon. He's like a 6'8" forward who was, a role player there, but an effective one and played big minutes. So I kind of want, he might have a good role coming off the bench at somewhere like SLU. A few other names that I liked. DJ Horn is a guy we recruited out of North Carolina, all Valley as a freshman at Illinois State, and then 3rd team all conference this year. Illinois State's just not very good right now, kind of a mess. So he left, and I think he's big time talent there, 15 points a game. 2 other guys I'll mention who I like. Nate Reavers, coming out of Wisconsin, is I think he'd be a grad transfer by this point, and he had a SLU offer and never really considered us way back in the day. But I point him out as the kind of guy who I would like right now because he's a stretch 4. He's a skinny guy, but blocks shots and shoots threes. And I kind of like the dynamic there that would bring, because we have 3 natural fives on our roster, with Bell, with Okoro, and, and with Martin Linson. So I like the dynamic there. And then the last player I'll mention is Kiki Tandy, who's leaving Xavier after 2 years for whatever reason, kind of being stuck on the bench this year. But he's from Western Kentucky, from Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Somebody we did recruit out of high school. And that's, Travis Ford and Ford Stewart, that's their stomping grounds. So they know the area well. They probably know his dad and everything. So that's a guy I would look at who is kind of he's a really dynamic guard who can do a little bit of everything. So those are kind of the guys in the portal that we've recruited before who I would kind of be looking the hardest at anyway. Yeah,
it's really kind of hard to tell outside of who, the only real thing you can do is look at who we've had offers out to before. It's the portal is such a different animal than recruiting out of high school because you don't get a lot of info.
You don't, and the recruiting cycle is so short. There are guys who hit the portal on Monday and have committed somewhere by Wednesday or Thursday. The first thing they put their name in the portal, and usually what happens is a player will start calling programs that he's interested in, and as soon as he hits the portal, he's also getting calls from programs. So it's an immediate back and forth. From there, they kind of sift through them. And sometimes a commitment can happen pretty fast, before a guy ever sees campus or anything like that. Maybe it's a school he's familiar with, maybe not. So the cycle is super short. It's hard to find information unless a player is just saying, here's who I've talked to. Or if he's telling, basketball press, here's who I'm talking to. So we're just kind of throwing darts, looking at this huge list going, oh, I'd like him, or I remember his name, or man, wouldn't he be great on our roster? So that's all we can do. And there's literally right now 1,194 guys who I guess a lot of them have committed by now. So there's still hundreds who you just look at and go, I don't know, maybe him. I mean, that's what it is.
I know it's absurd. The whole thing is just crazy. I mean, it's fun. It's fun, but I don't know where it's going. It's going to be a crazy off season, and I'm looking forward to hopefully the Billikens putting a team. I think the Billikens are going to stick obviously in the transfer portal. I don't think they're going to go high school. I think this school, or I don't remember if it was you who said it or somebody else, but I think the plan is to stay old until I think there's a big high school class coming up, and I think the Billikens want to stay old and be able to have scholarships available for this upcoming class in like a year or two.
I think that's right. We had talked about this before, but there was nobody except for Nesbitt, who was in the 2021 class. Then obviously he left early for Memphis, who we really went all in on. There's some guys in the class who we had offers out to, or who we kind of still looked at that I liked, but that we knew they were either going to be around this spring, or maybe they're guys who do prep years. A couple of them who I like, maybe because this, unfortunately for the 2021 class, because of COVID years, because of the transfer portal this year, that class is completely overlooked. There are players who are great college basketball players who are just kind of sitting there wondering what they're going to do right now. And I feel bad for those guys, but it's probably going to be a lot of kids next year who we were looking at this year who have taken prep years, or maybe they do a year in JUCO, maybe they do a year in a lower division. So eventually, hopefully, they kind of find the landing spots they deserve in D1 basketball. So yeah, I do really feel bad for that class overall, though. But yeah, it looks like you're right. I think we are going to stay old and value experience.
We got a lot to talk about on the quote unquote Olympic sports side of Billiken Athletics. A couple of wild results in baseball, because we did take a week off of following the day-to-day goings on in St. Louis. Men's soccer had a rough week last week, dropped 2 straight games in double overtime. Duquesne, they lost to in double overtime. I didn't see that one. But the Dayton one was really a heartbreaker. They lost it in the last 10 seconds on a free kick. Not good, but that's just the nature of college soccer, and that you have to have a winner unless it's a double overtime tie, which kind of stinks.
Yeah, it's frustrating. This is a team, they're 8-4 now, and 3 of those losses are overtime losses. 2 of those were double overtime losses. And then you had that weird Columbia College loss that we talked about several weeks ago. So soccer is a cruel game like that. You can play a good game and still lose, and that's what they dealt with.
Well, the Billikens took out their frustration today, or yesterday, I'm sorry. They hung 6 goals on St. Bonaventure, 3 off the all-time record, which was, again, the last time was against Vanderbilt of 9 goals. John Klein scored under a minute and a half into the game. John Klein again scored in the 13th minute. Majid Marana scored just 20 seconds later. And then Simon Batcher in the 17th minute. That was assisted by Patrick Wilkinson. Bonnie's got one back on a PK. Shea Curry scored. Simon Batcher got his second goal of the game in the 49th minute. Unassisted. That was off a big error from the Bonaventure keeper. And then Jack Micah scores in the 73rd minute to basically finish off the scoring in this one. It was just a fun, like, they were just toying with Bonaventure in this game. I don't know if you caught any of it.
No, so I didn't watch it live, but fortunately the highlight package was so big here. I guess I did basically watch 20% of the game. What stood out to me is that every one of these goals was a highlight goal. I mean, they were really nice setups, just well executed, well struck. And the other thing that struck me about these is, like, they looked really loose, like they were having a lot of fun. So for a team coming off 2 heartbreaking losses back to back like that, to, like you said, take it out on this team, and they clearly exercised some demons, because they're laughing and dancing and celebrating after all these goals. They looked really loose, and a ton of credit to them for bouncing back like that. This is, when you look at kind of the shot disparity here, it reminds me of when the women played St. Bonaventure a few weeks ago, and they needed overtime to beat them 1-0, even though they dominated every facet of the game. So this is how that game goes differently, where you're not just racking up shots, but really nice attempts and finishing, and here you go. It's a 6-1 bloodbath.
Not only did they need overtime to beat that Bonaventure team, they needed everything but about 3 seconds to beat that Bonaventure team.
Right. Yeah.
The women's soccer team continues to roll through the Atlantic 10. They are 4 wins away from going 3 straight years without dropping a game in conference. They pick up last week, Sunday. I think we covered that, the Bonaventure 4-0 win Sunday. They go to Duquesne. They play in an absolute blizzard. They dominate. I thought they dominated this game, but they're lucky to come away with a 1-0 win, given that anything can really happen when you play in the snow. And then they played in a beautiful Pittsburgh spring day today. 5-0 win. They showed really that blizzard was kind of a fluke.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a rout from the start. Not one where the stats necessarily jump out the way they did against that Bonaventure team before. But yeah, just great execution, and I think probably frustrating to have to play in a blizzard like that. I mean, we even had that day, we had snow here in Cincinnati as well, which I guess was opening day for the Cardinals and Reds. So that was it was a weird kind of fluky spring snow, but yeah, it was just beautiful to see them. 5-0, 5 different goal scorers, which is always fun too.
The Billiken women are outscoring their opponents this season 34-7. They have 2, 4, 6, 8. I think eight or 9 clean sheets in this season. I mean, it's just, and they're not playing, dogs. I mean, Xavier was a good team. Arkansas is a great team. Oklahoma State's a really good team, and that was an unfortunate loss there. I mean, obviously the conference isn't very good, but you finish off the season with Dayton twice here at home, Thursday and Sunday. And I mean, this has to go down as one of the best, really women's teams ever. And that's saying a lot because you just had a team that had like 5 great seniors on it, I believe 2 years ago.
Yeah, the crazy thing about this team is how many players they'll return. This is not a veteran team. They're just really, really good, really talented. So, I feel bad for the rest of the A10 because this isn't – you're not done with them. They might be even better next year or the year after that. So look out. So we just got to hang on to Coach Shields as long as possible. The one thing I will say, Dayton, the game at Dayton, they needed double overtime to win. So Dayton, they did kind of struggle with a little bit.
That was a bizarre game too, if you remember, because Dayton scored within like the first 3 minutes, and then SLU came right back and scored in the 5th, I believe.
Dayton's goal actually came in the first minute.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, so it was within 4 minutes, 2 goals. So that was a crazy one. So we'll see what happens here. I mean, it's much better to be playing at home, and you've got 2 chances against them. But yeah, that's it for the conference season, and then they've got the the A10 tournament coming up on the 15th.
Yeah, that'll be that. I think it's a foregone conclusion that one's going to be at Herman. Not sure about the men yet. I believe they're 2nd or 3rd place right now in points. But yeah, I finally will be able to make one of those games. My plans were foiled for the Oklahoma State game due to that player having symptoms of COVID and then being delayed. I think it was delayed like an hour or something. Volleyball ended their season. Not good. They failed to make the 4-team A10 championship. Obviously, they did minimal amount of teams in that tournament. Not a good season. They finished 8-10 overall, 6-4 in conference. I will say what I will say for this is that they really did have a brutal pod for the A10 divisions that they came up with. To have VCU and Dayton together, that's the class of the league right there. Although I thought, the volleyball team should have been a little more competitive, honestly, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's as hard a draw as possible that they could have had, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think you could have probably shifted Mason and VCU to each side, but that's about the only thing I think that would have worked geographically. But when has this conference ever given a shit about geography?
Yeah, no, we rarely get favored in that sense. I mean, I guess the way that soccer is potted right now is really the 4 westernmost teams playing against each other, but that's about it.
One of the crazier score lines you'll see in baseball, especially college baseball. The Billikens took the 3rd game of a series in Cincinnati against the Bearcats, 21-6. They failed to score in only the 1st and the 8th inning. The 2nd inning was 6 runs on, I believe, 2 hits. I believe there was, 3 wild pitches and 2 walks or something like that from the Cincinnati pitcher. But it was a wild game. This seems to be kind of a theme with the Billikens. Take just the 3rd game.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm disappointed that I missed this one because UC's baseball field is like I can walk there from my house, and I was actually hoping to go to this Sunday game with my son, but we had something else come up and I couldn't make it. So of course we miss a 21-run outburst. But yeah, well done. It was a crazy game. 21 runs on just 17 hits.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun you get away from how bad the season is because if they're 8-18 overall, they haven't reached conference play yet, so we'll see how that goes. But that game, and then you take the 3rd game again off Indiana State, but you lose the first 2. But it's number 25 Indiana State, so I mean, there are these silver linings that you can kind of enjoy it, and it's in such a poor non-conference season.
Yeah, they're showing they at least have the ability to beat these better teams. It probably comes down to pitching matchups.
Yeah,
It's probably no coincidence when you look back through the schedule. We're kind of like,
game.
yeah, you're picking off every third or fourth game from better teams. It was a tough non-conference schedule. I'll give them that. They've got one non-conference game left against SIUE, and then they get into it. George Mason, Richmond, and start going through the conference. But I don't know how good the A10 is this year, but I got to think they're certainly at least battle tested. I just don't know if the pitching is deep enough to make any noise this year.
No, I think that's what you're seeing in some of these in so many one-run games. It's the potential you're having bullpen issues because, I mean, you look back at the schedule and Kennesaw State, you lose 2 by 1 run. North Dakota State, you lose 2 by 1 run. Kansas, you lose in 12 innings by 2. Western Illinois, you win by 1. All these 1 or 2 run games. SEMO, you lost by 2. Mizzou, you lost by 1. It could have gone either way, I feel like, in some of these games. So, I think it's just a bit of a tough season. So we'll see how they do in the A10. I think they have a chance to do okay, but we'll see how it goes. Softball history was made this weekend for the second time in the program's history. A Billiken pitcher throws a perfect game. The first perfect game was Nicole Bonensteel. I knew that off the top of my head. I think I texted you in shame that I knew that off the top of my head.
No shame.
Yeah. That was back, I want to say, late 90s, early 2000s. But I know I watched her pitch on multiple occasions. But this was Chloe Wendell. It was a 5-inning mercy rule game. The Billikens exploded for 15 runs. It was a 15-0 beatdown. This was just awesome to watch. I couldn't believe how often the commentator kept saying "perfect game" because I'm of the mindset you don't say a damn thing.
Yeah, it didn't jinx it somehow. I mean, I guess you did have the mercy rule, so it was shorter. It was a 5-inning game, but still, I mean, a perfect game is a perfect game.
Yeah.
So so all credit to her for that. She had a 1-2-3 first, and then in the bottom of the first, SLU hung 10 on Dayton. So then she comes out with a very comfortable lead to kick off the second, and I guess from there you can just kind of take a deep breath and settle in, pitch with that lead, and all credit to her. I mean, 5 perfect innings is not easy to do.
No, I think there was only one real scare, and it was the player was called out. The ball hit her as she left after she left the box in like the 4th inning. So they ruled the Dayton player out at first. So that kept the perfect game intact. Otherwise, I think it would have been a hit. So good for her, man. Good for Billiken softball. That's good. It's good to have these things, and they've struggled so far in the A10. They're 1-4. I think they're 2-6 now. I want to say. I think that's what it was. But yeah, 7-20 overall, 2-6. It'll be interesting to see what happens with softball and volleyball going into the off season. Canoyer's been here for 11 years. Kent Miller's been here for 10. Softball, I can't say the way I talk about volleyball because softball really doesn't. I mean, they don't have locker rooms by the field. They don't have a proper stadium. They don't have a press box. Baseball doesn't have a press box. Volleyball really has all the facilities. So, I mean, you can really look at what's going on there and say, why aren't we doing better? Softball is very much like field hockey in that way,
Yeah, and in addition to just not having the facilities, it's when you're a private school, high tuition, non-revenue sport like this, there are only so many scholarships to go around. And, one of the hardest factors of being a coach in one of those sports is how do I make it work financially to fill out a roster? So there's that. And then the fact that, St. Louis is not a Sun Belt city or out west where they can play, outdoors year round. So you've got some indoor training in the off season. So a lot of disadvantages, but, I will say for most of the non-conference schedule, this team was losing by 1 or 2, maybe 3 runs. They were losing more than they were winning, but every game was so close. That kind of went out against, these recent series against Iowa State and George Washington. They did get blown out a decent amount, and they've only won, I think, 3 of their last 10 or so. But they did, they split 2 doubleheaders with Dayton at home here. So, the perfect game's a lot of fun. It's been a tough season, but I think they are a little bit better than their record shows.
Yeah, definitely. And but it'll be interesting to see. I think I could see Ken Miller getting 1 more year. It all depends on his contract situation. They're not going to buy him out. It's not that.
Right.
It's not even – I don't even know if it's worth it unless a booster wants to step up and pay it. Because obviously me personally, I have a soft spot for volleyball at SLU. Everyone knows that.
Sure.
So it bothers me more than it really actually impacts the athletic department. Right. So it'll be interesting to see. I think he probably should maybe move on, but I'm not sure. I think he'll get at least another year, especially with the COVID year. But I think that's about it. Field hockey is going to finish their season next Sunday, I think, against Davidson or Richmond. I didn't really look. They're obviously they've slowed down since they've gotten into the East Coast part of their schedule and haven't really scored.
They finish on the 10th against Richmond.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make that game just to show some love for the new coach and.
It's been a rough couple weeks after a promising start.
Yeah, well, you get the East Coast private schools, and
sure.
I mean, they're in such a tough – I think they probably have it the worst of all the programs. It'd be like putting Billiken tennis being in the West Coast Conference.
Sure.
Or the WAC. They're out of their league. But I think that's all for us on this episode. It's going to be a fairly normal-sized episode. Again, thanks everyone for listening. Pete, anything more before we get out of here?
No, just keep watching the transfer portal, and hit us up on Twitter if you see anything. If there's any players that interest you, if there's anything that we're missing, I've tried to keep an ongoing thread of players that pop up that might be of interest to SLU fans. And then, in terms of recruiting, we'll get into 2022 and the later classes coming up. But right now, it's all the transfer portal craziness. So stay tuned. The offseason is going to be a lot of recruiting stuff to talk about, and hopefully more.
Yeah, we're hoping to get players. If you have any contact with a former player, I don't want to say I don't really care who it is, but really, I don't like. I want to talk to them. I want to hear their story. That's what I love to do. If you have, please feel free to message them on our behalf and make the connection. You can always DM us, and link us that way. I know we're working on some stuff. I know Peter's got some agents out there somewhere working hard behind the scenes, and I'm trying with a couple, but I had the momentum with the interviews on the other one, and now I'm trying to get that momentum going again. So again, thank you guys for listening. Follow us on Twitter, Midtown Mad Pod, and definitely interact with our Twitter. I'm at Zach Miller MMP. Peter is at Peter is a tweeter. Thank you guys again for listening. It means the world to both of us. So Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks.